Two line
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
I'm Christiana Wu, and I'm a writer, director, producer of indie films. I've done a few short films, but and I'm planning on doing a few more this year just for fun. So that's pretty much it.
Cool.
I'm just seeing if she's able to log. Hey
Sure.
Claudia, how are you?
I'm sorry, I'm logging in. Sorry.
It's okay. We're just doing intros if you want to introduce yourself.
Just like, yeah, like one or two lines, just real, so I can get an idea of who's in the room. Oh, she'll try again. So, Shilpa, let me know how long you want to wait, or, you know, if you want to just get started and let people trickle.
Yeah, we can get started. I'm just waiting for Pooja, but we can get started. So yeah, so tell us about where you grew up and how you became interested in filmmaking, and
Sure.
how that influenced what types of stories you like to tell, and then
Sure.
specifically cinematography. So
Yeah.
go ahead. It's a lot we can go through.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm Barbie Leung. I'm originally from New York, which I am also here right now. So I've lived in California before, but like that wasn't really for me, even though it was like an important like time of my life. Well, anyway, so like in terms of coming up and like becoming a filmmaker, like I think like you know I didn't go to college for it. I mean, I went actually, you know, like Ben, I had a I thought I was going to maybe major in psychology or something like that. And then ultimately it was like, oh, I have to pick a major now. So I just went to the film department because I realized, you know, I was taking, you know, film classes I really like at the University of Rochester, and, you know, really sort of rewriting that narrative about yourself. Of like, you know, I would be in high school and like, you know, kids would play outside or something. And then I would just be watching DVD, like independent films like the Ice Storm or whatever. I would just go to the library and I'm like, this looks weird and good, and then I would just watch that. So it's really about like tracing it back to that interest that I didn't know that I had. So after
Yeah, I think
graduating,
I also started watching art house
yeah.
films in high school, either things like the Ice Storm
Mm-hmm.
or going to Angelica Theater and watching the new releases. And then Ang Lee and Wong Kar-wai were really coming up then. So those were big influences for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so like with college I ended up like with a film studies degree. So there was no production there. So after that I moved back to New York. So the good thing about being in New York is that you can just start PAing and like doing things like that. And I quickly realized I had a hot moment where I was, you know, in the production department, like doing AD stuff and whatever. But, you know, you kind of quickly realize, well, like that's where the camera is and this is where we're making the images. So also I didn't drive. So that really limits your shelf life as a PA. So I'm like, well, I need to find a way to be valuable enough that other people will drive me around. So I got into ACing and kind of came up that way. Hit a plateau in New York for other life reasons, moved to San Francisco, spent 2 years there. Still AC'd a little bit, but like I kind of got into film festival work, which is kind of
Oh,
terrible, but it's not
I
without.
worked at the Asian American Film Festival for 3 years in San Francisco. And I started a film festival. When were you there?
2013 March
Oh, okay.
to 2015. So I did cam, I did Frameline, you know,
Oh,
I discovered
really?
Frameline,
Yeah.
which is amazing, you know, because it's strangely very regional, even though it's the oldest LGBTQIA film festival out there. And that's where I also, you know, also your SF, you know, international, all that jazz, so a little bit in Palm Springs, blah, blah, blah. But I did meet, you know, a collaborator there, and that's when I made what I would call a real calling card in terms of my DP work. So I had shot a couple of small things in New York while I was ACing, but kind of when I went to San Francisco, it's very recentering. And I made a calling card that, you know, I'm still proud enough to keep on my website, even though it's now, I don't know, like getting like 6 years old or something like that.
I'm
You
just
know, I'm
going to
still very proud
interrupt
of
for
that.
a second. So for other people, so there are major markets in the US, which are New York and LA and Chicago, that where the major releases are because of population. So San Francisco is one of the smaller markets. So things like a film festival, they're huge. There's not much other stuff to do. So it's like a very big deal. And then a lot of them share the same office building, which is a media center, 9th Street Media Center. So it's a great place, and they have a lot of you know, local tax incentives. So now you're seeing a huge movement come out of the Bay Area, and especially Oakland and San Francisco. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so right, so then like after that, I didn't want to stay in San Francisco because it is a secondary market, so it really limits your growth, and it was either moving to LA or New York, and I really miss New York. And I sort of for any of you who, you know, if you move away to somewhere else, you know, that's when you really understand how you grew up, you know, if that makes sense. Like if you have nothing to compare it to, you're not really going to know. So I kind of discovered who I, you know, who I was more, and I also discovered what New York was more. So I came back with a very different attitude because I didn't really know that many people in San Francisco. So in a way that gives you like a hunger. And so like you bring that with you, and you bring those skill sets with you where you didn't know some, you know, that kind of those soft skill things. So I really felt that, you know, especially working in film festivals, you can talk to anyone now. Like, you know, if you've worked a film festival in San Francisco, you can talk to anyone. You know, if like, you know, if a druggie needs to get a muffin from this film event, you know, you kind of like put all those pieces together of what life means. I don't know, I'm getting weird, but you know what I mean? And you carry that with you, and that can translate to make you just a better navigator of the industry, a better navigator with people. So yeah, so I've been back since 2015 in New York. And when I got back, that's when I completely stopped ACing. I did do a little bit of G&E, you know, to strengthen that other part. So this is where we kind of get into like, well, what is a cinematographer, right? You know, I think that depending on where you're coming from, or, you know, what it really looks like, because, you know, I'm getting older, so I don't really know what that word really invokes in people now. But when I was growing up, like, I didn't know what it was. And then, oh, there we go. I didn't know what it was. And then, you know, there's no like modeling for it really. But like, I at least at the time, to me, it seemed like, oh, like a cinematographer, it's like this very like artsy person, like, you know, very highfalutin, and you're blah, blah, blah. But like, you know, as you dive into it, you know, and even those people who seem that way also know this, that it's really, it is an art, but it's less of an art than it is a craft. Like you're a craftsman, you know, like in the same way that, you know, people would be making like a vase that does not go in a museum. Like it's beautiful. It's, you know, it's really beautiful. It's satisfying, but, you know, it has a lot of connection with like doing work, you know, like doing like physical work, you know, that's what it gratifies you. And that has some, you know, and I think that I have roots in that from, you know, my own family too, because I think there were kind of like a lot of artisans, you know, just like briefly, I am first generation, and my family, you know, kind of ran away from the Cultural Revolution in China and stuff, but like, you know, but like where they were at, you know, in sort of their home, they were also kind of, it was also kind of like a weird mix. Like my grandmother like ran away from home to become a traveling opera chorus girl, essentially.
Oh wow.
And then she like found my grandfather, who was one of like the writers with the troupe. And so it's like it already kind of started there. And I think that it kind of osmosed in, you know, you're sort of like, you know, in that weird sort of circus kind of life, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of me in a nutshell. Like I said, I came back to New York and really just started to hustle, and like kind of into you know, what I assume would be kind of like the world that Christy is working with, you know, just like making short films and making indie stuff, and then just going from one to the other. And at this point, you know, I kind of developed a, you know, whatever portfolio, you know, just really a something that's sustainable for me, which is to do like a lot of branded stuff, you know, so kind of on the edge of commercial. Like sometimes I do things that you would call a commercial, but it's not broadcast, right? But then, you know, we're also very comfortably in a state where a lot of things are commercials, because there's so many different ways that we look at it. It's not just like Super Bowl, you know what I mean? But that's still always everybody's gold standard, right? But like I'm not really a commercial DP, so like I just want to do that stuff because it pays you more money, so that it's more sustainable for you to like go out and do some doc projects. And then I also don't want to do doc projects too much because of how much time they consume, you know, like if you're doing a doc feature, it'll take you like, you know, you're not working on it every day, and you're not working to it at the same same extent as the director or the producers are, but you always have it on the back of your mind and you always want to prioritize it. You know what I mean? So like, I also try to limit that, but it is very fulfilling because I do love documentaries, and I love watching them. I believe in a lot of them, and they also directly, in a technical way, you can bring some of that. It's a really good training ground to bring you back to a certain kind of narrative work. So all that to say really that I've always been trying to focus on narrative work. But like, you have to do a lot of these other things to make a sustainable lifestyle. And this past weekend, I just shot my 30th short film. So I've done a lot of them. And, obviously they have different like levels of budget and production value and a lot of genres. And so, to kind of wrap it back to what Shilpa was saying about like, what do I like to shoot? It's like, I'm kind of trying to shoot all genres, some people, I think some DPs, and definitely a lot more for directors, I feel like there is that sort of nebulous pressure to like, oh, develop a style, like, be known for something. And while I think that's extremely true in commercial, and some people would say that it's also true in narrative, I personally, I'm not trying to do that. I'm kind of running in the other way where because as a viewer, as like a rabid viewer, I love watching all kinds of things, even before television was cool, before streaming was cool. I watched network television. I love syndicated television, like I would watch like Star Trek Next Generation. Like that was very important to me. I would watch, and now like I love television, not just like prestige television, but there's also a lot to learn from procedurals, right? Because there's a lot of value in that. And then so it kind of runs the gamut from this, like from that stuff to, your art films, like in art house, like this like random things you see on the film festival circuit that maybe doesn't even get distribution or only gets it in their home country, whatever, your Criterion, like really highfalutin stuff, big blockbusters. I love action films. So like really, I've been just trying to jump around different genres because, on a practical level, it makes you ready for a different opportunity, right? If somebody like wants to hire you for something, but they're like, I'm not really sure if this is right. And it's like, well, don't worry about it. It may not be on my website, but I do have something here I can show you, because, ultimately, cinematographers were in the customer service business, for lack of a better word. Like, somebody has a need and it's like, well, here, I am the solution for you. And then so you have to have things to show them. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna introduce, so Pooja, are you unmuting? You'll have to unmute. Yeah, hi.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Pooja,
Hi.
zooming in
Hi.
from Mumbai, Bombay, India, and she's one of the top cinematographers there. So do you want to, so we're just, if you introduce yourself, like where you grew up, how that influenced you going into filmmaking and cinematography, and then what kinds of projects you like to work, or your style, or your personal taste, I guess.
First of all, thank you for having me here and all the kind words you said, Shilpa. And hi, Barbie. Nice to hear you and your journey. It was really, it's somewhat resonates. But I started when I was very young to get attracted to visuals. I was, I think I was in 4th standard is when I realized that I am very, inclined towards visual medium than, studying. So there was this one point in my school that I left all my exam papers empty. And my teachers were worried. They thought my parents were getting divorced or something. And that's why I'm not writing my papers. And they called my parents. And that's when I realized that I'm more of a visual person. And that's how I actually, I was actually then trained for drawing. And then I got into commercial art college, and I studied photography as my specialization in Pune, which also has one of the oldest film schools in India, which is the Film and Television Institute of India. Again, the film school was very close to my house. Film archives is very close to my house. So I could access a lot of world cinema. I watched a lot of French New Wave and German cinema, and all the great filmmakers that India produced: Satyajit Ray, Ritik Ghatak, Mrinal Sen, and I was introduced to all of them at the age of 16. So, I mean, knowingly, I was more attracted towards visuals, and that's how cinematography happened. I applied to a film school in Calcutta. I wanted to go away from home because once you're at home, you're still in cocoon. So I left home and I joined Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute. From there on, I moved to Bombay. I assisted a cinematographer for 2 years. But you assisting a cinematographer, he's really big. He does really big shoots. But one point I realized that it was sort of a donkey work. You're executing something that is somebody else's vision. Of course, you're adding to it, and you become a good assistant. But I always wanted to do something of my own, and that's why I felt that I did the film school anyway. So
for people who are still in college, what type of duties do you do as a AC if they're looking at starting out jobs like that?
So when I started out as even though I was from a film school, see the thing that I loved about the person who I assisted, Kiran Devhans, when I met him, the first thing he said that, you have to like working with me and I have to like working with you. That's very important, nobody says that. You have to like working with me. He would be just concerned that, he has to like working with me, but he also said, I have to like working with you. So it's very important because the person the DP that you're assisting, you have to be one step ahead of the DP, not in terms of, telling the story, but executing the whole shoot. For example, you're on the shoot and that the DP has a certain style. I'm not saying aesthetically, but equipment wise, the DP needs the schemers ready, or the certain lighting, or the electric partitions ready in a certain way. So you do it before the DP is asked. So I started as an intern. Of course, I just got stipend for first 2 shoots. Then I became a third AC, where I was just maintaining the light continuity, making the diagrams, making sure that every day the same, if we were doing the same scene, then all the lights were placed, all the gels were properly placed in the right way. Then I became the second AC. Of course, you move on gradually, and then I was the first AC, then the operator, and you move on with the experience, and as you gain the trust of the DP, of course. But every role had its different. As a first AC, I was more on the page with the DP, discussing the aesthetic and the lighting of the film that we were shooting. But as a second AC, I was just probably executing what my first AC was telling me. Just put the light here, I want this diffusion, I want this. That was my first. As a second AC, first AC was more like discussing, what kind of light do you want, and instead of using a frost, maybe we can use a silk to make it softer, or things like that. So again, it was more like, you're still doing or probably executing the things that the DP has been thinking, or jamming on how to make it better and faster. But there came a point in this whole assisting period that I started feeling that, I am not thinking, I am just doing things that have been told. So I collaborated with my film school director, who I shot his final film for, final diploma film. I told him, listen, we have to do something. That's when digital was actually kicking in a lot. I think it was around 2009. 5D was a sensation. Then everybody wanted to shoot on a 5D. So
yeah,
we
and
just
there were
bought
some
one.
really cinematic, totally low budget movies coming out of India on the 5D, and you couldn't tell a lot of the times. in those.
Yes,
Anyway,
yes.
go ahead. Like Ship of Theseus and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely,
Go ahead.
absolutely. So 5D became like this one thing where it gave voice to a lot of these independent filmmakers in India. So my director came from an exotic place in India. It's in Arunachal, very close to China border. And he has a tribal village. Only 500 people live in that village. And his tribe is only of around 5,000, 6,000 people. They have a specific language, but they don't have a scripture for it. It's just the language. There's no letters, like there's no writing for it. So we thought we'll make a film in his language, and he had written a script. So we went on to shoot Crossing Bridges like that. It was just me. I asked the camera attendant that, if he would pull focus for me on the 5D, because it is difficult to do that. You don't really have the same marks. So you have to keep marking the lens every time you pull focus. And I was shooting on L series lenses. So, I mean, they were not even compact primes. So, yeah, we shot Crossing Bridges, and it was a 30-day shoot. It all went fine. We budgeted, but in that process, I sort of became a EP on the project, because cinematography department is the biggest or the largest department, and I had a crew of 3, but which was the biggest crew. So I did want some lights for some days, because we were shooting indoors and I wanted to create certain feel to it. So I planned the shoots. I ended up scheduling the film, which is the first AD's job. I ended up scheduling the film. I made sure that my 10 days of lights or 9 days of lights were scheduled in the beginning, and then so on. And so I ended up becoming the EP. Then I was like, okay, now since that I am getting the producer's credit, I should take it till the end. So I applied to the work in progress lab. There are these labs that happen all over the world. In India, there's something called NFDC, which it's a national development.
Just to interrupt, yeah, I've also been telling people, like, it's not so fix your role. So I've been teaching, the producing and this writing and everything one by one, because nowadays, I mean, at least as a good collaborator, you have to understand every other position, but also
Yes.
It has to be practical, and sometimes you are doing so many positions at once. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in Crossing Bridges, while shooting, it so happened that we were so less of manpower that I was doing the costume continuity. I used to come back from the shoot, sit with one of the ADs and do the scheduling for the next day, because though we had the schedule jot down for the next 30 days, I mean the whole 30 days, because the weather keeps changing. It's in the mountains, the weather keeps changing. So we had to I had to keep changing the schedule. And of course the cinematographer has to be in loop, because one scene is shot halfway in sunlight, and you can't shoot the half scene half in shadow outdoors. So we had to sort of sit together, collaborate, and do the scheduling for the first AD, then put the costumes in the trunk. So I was doing the costume continuity with the AD, because we did not have the editor on shoot. I was actually dumping the rushes and making sure there were 3 backups. So it was after 15-16 hours of shoot, it was 4 hours of work later and getting 2 hours of sleep. But it was all thrilling. And
yeah. So how is it? Okay, so going from that and just starting out to then doing like a more art house style of features, and then now working with Netflix, where I assume you have all the resources. Like, what are some of the same skills, and then what is different about that?
As a cinematographer, the budget is never enough. Because the more you have it, the more your crew is bigger, the more the more technique you want, the more it's always like this. Yes, of course, there are certain things that you visualize, you can achieve them, because you get better technically how do I put it? Technically sound crew, and best of people in the market to, hire, like a Steadicam operator or a run in with them,
Yeah, whatever.
mimic, and
Yeah,
I mean, lot of equipments that you desire, that will give you the shot. So I will say, as a cinematographer, things are always the same. You have to be planned. It can't be, just go and shoot. It has to be there before on the paper. You have to give that 2-3 months of prep with the director. I mean, if it's a simple film, of course. If it's a VFX heavy film, or action heavy film, then you are with the director and the action director. And so, I mean, every film has its own demand, but you should give the necessary time for whatever prep you need for the film.
Pooja, can I ask what you're doing with Netflix? What's the project?
There was a Netflix original which I shot, which is already on Netflix. It's called Brijmohan Amar Rahe.
It's in the link on the invitation.
Yeah.
All of your links are both there. So.
Yeah. And then I shot a film called Rook, which of course was not bought. Which was bought by Rook, Netflix. It's called Rook. But it's there only till the 31st of March. Then it's the contract is getting over. It was a 3-year contract. So basically, the film was first made. Then it was, in fact, if you've seen White Tiger, has anybody seen White Tiger? Yeah. So the lead actor in it was the lead actor in our film Rook, and it was his first. Yeah, it was his first. Rook was his first film where he was the main protagonist. And the casting director happened to see Rook, and she had him in mind. And then of course White Tiger happened, and I'm really happy for him. He's done fantastic in White Tiger. So crossing, I'll come back to Crossing Bridges. With Crossing Bridges, I happen to do a lot of this production stuff, and I happen to even distribute the film myself. So I approached this platform, which is in India. It's called PVR. They released the film in certain screens. Now it's on Amazon. So somehow I got these, in-flight sale and all that. So I realized that when you're doing indie projects, you can't just do one role, but you can pitch in a lot of ways. At the end, since it's your project, you want your work to be noticed. You have to sort of take a step up and help the director, because I've realized a lot of directors who are indie filmmakers, or they don't really have the knack of promoting themselves, which I think a cinematographer, I'm sorry Shilpa, I'm saying that, but
I worked in marketing, so I have a different perspective. I sold other people's movies for a year, 300 movies a year. So I guess when you're promoting yourself, it's a different thing. But go ahead.
No,
but I'm very business minded because of that,
No, but what happens is people coming from film school and with no marketing background, just coming from, they find it very difficult to, go out there and speak about their own film or praise about their own film. But then as a cinematographer, it's easy to praise the director, right? Saying that, I saw this wonderful film, and yeah. And why don't you have a look? And that's what happened with Crossing Bridges. And it traveled to festivals. It won the President's Award here. And of course, that gave me opportunity to work on another film, which was a Tamil film. The director saw the film in the work in progress lab. So Crossing Bridges sort of became a stepping stone. Then, of course, after Tamil film, I keep shooting a lot of short films for my friends and the directors that I believe in. I think that, they will do something good in future. I like to encourage them. Sometimes they have money, sometimes they don't have money, but between two jobs, if I can find time, I like to shoot short films for them. And so this director, I mean, now he's my husband also, we were together in film school, but
This director, your husband.
yeah.
And you just had a baby. Congrats also.
Thank you. Sorry, that's why I got a bit late, because he was a bit cranky and I did not know what to do. So now he's with his nanny. But yeah, my husband Atanu, he's an editor, but he also wanted to direct. So we did this short film which traveled to some festivals. It won best film in one of the festivals, and the producer of Rook happened to see the short film, and he wanted us to pitch a sort of feature film to him. So what we did was we shot a treatment scene, like a scene. We selected a scene from the script, which we shot with Adarsh. Randomly we selected him as an actor because we thought, oh, he's a nice face, he knows how to act, let's just shoot the scene with him. And the scene was like very well received by a lot of people, and somehow the producer was also convinced, and he was convinced that we should take Adarsh in the film. So I happened to also produce that treatment scene, and of course then Rook happened, and the same producers were producing Bridge Mohan, which was a Netflix original. So I'm saying that one project leads to the other, yeah, I mean, you have to create opportunities for yourself, which I've always believed in. And like what Barbie said, that there's no one style one as a cinematographer you can follow, because every project needs a different approach. And of course in ad films it's different, and ad films people tend to sort of categorize you, like she does skin commercials or car commercials or XYZ brands.
Yeah, like we want a baby and we can cry or something very specific.
Yeah. It's very crazy. Like she just shoots with kids, she knows how to shoot with kids, or she shoots with animals and she knows how to shoot with animals. So things like that. But I find it very silly, because if a person can light a pot, can also light a car, because it's not so different. A pot also gives a lot of reflections like cars. So I'm saying it takes research, but it's not rocket science.
Okay, so let's talk about bridge into like how you both collaborate with your collaborators. So like, what is your process? How early do you come on a project? And also, like, I was always trained as a director, because my first directing teacher came up as a cinematographer. So I was trained, like, do your shot list, do your overheads yourself, all this stuff. But then some DPs find that insulting, like it's their job. So, I mean, how prepared do you expect a director to be? Or how do you talk about your collaboration and finally break it down into a shot list? All that creative stuff, if you can briefly both talk about your process.
Sure.
And if you have any examples also.
I would love the screen share, because I think that, because I think like the way that again, I completely agree with Pooja in that, like, creating your own opportunities and, like, all that stuff. But my, just like my journey is a little bit different in that. So I feel like, Pooja, you've like been able to like make these features and then really get involved, like, from the producer role and everything. So I've still been waiting on that feature, because like I've been like insulted by feature scripts. I read it, I'm like, I can't shoot this, I can't spend this much time with it, etc., etc. So that's why I focused on shorts. And so oh, can I share it yet? Oh, I can't.
Yeah, it's
fantastic. Yeah, so ooh, hold on, it kind of freaks my windows out. I just gotta bring you guys back. There we go. Do you see a
yeah,
screen? Yeah, so just as a quick lineup, right? on my website here. So like these are some of the short films that, you know, it's a little bit old now, but it's still a lot of them here. So like, and like, you know, when I look at this, it's just like there's so many different styles of production, and all the schedules are, you know, in terms of how much prep time, what kind of prep, they're all really different. In general, like I've been able to, and I think I like working with directors who can come up with their own shot lists, because I see mine more as like a translation process. Like I want to understand what you want, and then I want to make it possible, you know? So it's like, what's a good example here? Like on the more extreme side, we have something like like Zamboni. I think I did send this one out if anybody was able to take a look.
Yeah.
This one, it's like a Columbia University MFA film, and he knew exactly the shots that he wanted. So that was really easy. He had storyboards. And so when we went into it, we really were talking like that. And that one wasn't like for lack of time. We had lots of time. Like I came in pretty early, but it's just like a person who knew exactly what they wanted. But that being said, also like I'm very proud of the fact that like this shot and this shot were not on his storyboard. Right? Like these are things that we found, things that we added. Like this one in particular, like we went to scout this location, which is an active hockey rink. There's no art direction in this film. Like everything is real. And so this, and it's like, and it just worked perfectly with the story, because it's about this guy who used to play pro hockey, and then like he got an injury, and then he became like a janitor. So he's real sad. And when we went there, there is this little like, you know, like electronic game. And it was like, it's perfect for him to be cleaning it. And it's just these little people, and he's staring in on it, and it's, you know, it's that like that loss, and, you know, looking in on things, and it was like, it's perfect. So you can contribute directly to it in that way. It's like, how do you feel about, and then you set up the shot, and then it's like, that's a buy. Like it fits in with the kind of shots that he already wanted, and it adds to the story and blah blah. So that was like a more extreme example of somebody who knew exactly, but you can still get in there, versus something like Writer's Block, where it's also really strange. It was a really strange film because Wyatt Olaf is like the kid actor who was in It. And he just wanted to do this because he has a lot of money now, because he was in It. So he basically produced this film. Like nominally his parents produced it. So this was very much like a work for hire kind of situation. And no one really cared. Nobody had any real shot lists or anything. So they just want to tell the story. And so again, like you line it up and it's like, how's this? And it's like, okay, we'll do this. And it's like, you know, they liked it on the monitor, and it was fine. So it was like, again, that wasn't lack of time. It was sort of like, they didn't know what they wanted. You fill it in. And
but then that had a fire and all kinds of other effects. So you must have had some planning for those.
It would surprise you. There was somebody involved who is like a flame artist. Like John Abudian, I think he does a lot for like Midsummer and like things like that.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So he was, we went there, and then the woman who owned the house like wouldn't let us use the hazer that we had. So so originally it was supposed to work in conjunction with the VFX, and he was like, don't worry about it. I mean, I still think you're really missing it, but like he's good enough that he knew that he could relatively make it sell. I mean, it's not perfect, but I'll try to give one more example. This one is good. This one I think is more in line with like, you know, kind of what Pooja was saying, like someone who may not necessarily know what they want. This was like, she's more of a performance artist, and she wanted to make this. So she had some shot lists, but this is where you could really get in there. And we had a lot of time. And so if I could just jump over here. So this is my Google album thing that I use to keep like both reference albums of things that I like, and also where I, you know, do mood boards and I prep things. So this one, there's like a floor. Oh yeah. So like, this is the floor. Sometimes you can Google floor plans for things. Oh, this wasn't the one. Sorry, I'm jumping around a lot, but like sometimes like, you know, you can just Google to see if an existing location has like just a real estate floor plan, and you can use that to start building lighting diagrams.
And then is this director's viewfinder the shot samples? Like the lens samples?
Oh yeah, so I used to use, I mean, I jumped around a lot. I had Artemis, and then I used yeah, I use a couple of them. So now I'm back to using Artemis Pro. But
So do
yeah.
you use that when you scout so that's an app and that has different lens choices. So a lot of people use that when they scout a location or do a rehearsal or just
Yeah.
to have an easier way to talk about, explain, translate what you're thinking, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is one part of, you know, the process. Like, I like to read a script and then immediately start putting together a lookbook, right? So sometimes people will send me a director's deck where they already put together some images. Sometimes they don't. And I've just found that what works for me is just to make a leap of faith and just put together what you think it looks like. And then I feel like more than 9 times out of 10, like 95% of the time, I'll just somewhere in that conversation, I'll just bring up, this is the lookbook. And then it will either jive or it won't. You know, you can refine it more, you know, as you continue to have creative decisions, but especially because my niche is short films, like you have to move very fast. So like a lot of the times my original lookbook gets like augmented a little bit, but really it's the thing that got you hired is the thing that you make. So it really goes really quickly. Because I made a one sheet. Oh yeah, so this is the one sheet that I made, right? So, and then I got hired at the end of the call. And then I think that this matches very well to the product that we ended up making. So, you know, before you know what the lens choices or whatever, you just like think about it. Like, I think that it should look, and you don't say, I think it looks like this, right? You say
Yeah,
like,
and
it reminds me of this, and then like blah, blah. And then, you know, you want it to all still be their idea. So yeah, so that was a really good lookbook. And then I'll just do one more, and then that's because I think I sent Dysphoria, right? So
yeah.
Dysphoria also has a much more developed lookbook, because she did start with a lot of stuff. Like we kind of ended up having 2 directors, but like one director brought in like Suspiria.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which I actually had not seen at the time. And we kept a lot of it, you know, we went and we stood at the location. I think I have location photo. Yeah, because it's an older project, I've sort of condensed things more. Yeah, so like this is the scout picture. So this is what Shilpa was saying, like, you know, with the viewfinder, like, so you know, like, you know, if you know what the camera is, you can put it in there. If you know what the aspect ratio is, best guess as to what you're shooting it with. I think we already knew at the time it would be the Cook Mini S4s. So we put that in there. And like, you know, you kind of go around the house. And I think this is one of my favorites. So like we saw this bathroom and I saw this green bathtub, and there was a movie called Lure, this horror movie that I really like. And that color was, yeah, so it's like this picture.
Oh.
So this, I love this so much. And that bathroom said this shot to me. And then we ended up making, I'll just jump back here. We changed the color a little bit in the final, so it went back to that teal color. But then we did this.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
so
very
like
highlight.
yeah, so you can really directly translate these things. Like you have a thought, you see a location, you go back to other thoughts, it could be paintings, other photographs, and then you translate it. And then you also make sure, does that still like make sense with all the various references that you've pulled together from different films, like Cries and Whispers here. You know, this is like, again, this is me watching like action movies, right? Like I wanted to go watch this, I forgot what this was called, the Charlize Theron, she's like a spy. Like I love this movie. And it's like, oh, well, there's a disco scene in this short film. I feel like I like the colors from this film. I like the way that it looked on Charlize. Let me go look at that again. And then how does it work with, like, the director wanted this. She, I don't even remember what film this is. She wanted this, like very close, and, you know, still has the 2 colors. But then I'm like, well, I like the colors from the Charlize Theron thing. So let's put these 2 things together. And then what you end up with is this. Right? So it's like, it's really just like a remix of how you can stick to what the director wants, what
Oh,
the
that's a good way of
script,
thinking about it.
yeah, what it reminds it to, what you can connect it to yourself, and then you make something that's hopefully new, but also, you know, exactly what, you know, you all imagined it to be. I don't know. Anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have lighting diagrams. All of my lighting diagrams kind of like look like, I don't even have any. They end up looking like really weird and sketchy. Like I have them in like different notebooks, and I never bothered to like really, I used Shot Designer once, and it's like, it's very pretty, but like I don't have time for this. And yeah, I don't know. I'd like to do them more in the future, because I think that like gaffers and G&E, like they say they don't, for short films, like not big films, people like all about the lighting schematics, you need them, right? But for short films, like people don't like to look at them, but the truth is if you print them out and then you tape them on the room that you're shooting in, like you're in an apartment and you tape it there, and like you're shooting something in the living room, and if it's there, they will look at it and they will do that thing.
Yeah.
And you saying it is not very helpful. It's just like a different thought process. But if it's on paper, then it's kind of like, do you see this thing? I wrote it down, so it's real now. So you do this, you know, and it actually goes a lot better. But that's where the time crunch for.
And a lot of
any short
times,
films comes in.
like the rest of the crew may not have read the script, or they may be there for the day. So those type of, they just want to know, what are we lighting, and where's the actor moving, or whatever.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Like, I mean, I love gaffers that actually care about the story that we're telling, but that's even like the most talented people, that's not what they're always there for, you know?
Yeah.
So you really are the guardian of that look and the meaning of why you're doing something.
Okay, so if you unshare Pooja, you can talk about your process.
There you go.
Sorry, my baby is just crying a lot. I think he's not feeling well. Give me 5 minutes. You can continue, Barbie, with something. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, can I show you one other thing that's more about process?
Yeah.
So, you know, because I think like, you know, I think Shilpa, you mentioned stuff kind of about career. So if I'm jumping forward, you just let me know.
Go
but
for it.
I also wanted to just sort of show, like I have Dropbox, right? And then for each one, like, you know, I'll have a year and then I break them up into projects, right?
Yeah.
So it's like for this, you can go into one project, like this is a narrative project, you know, and you know, you really, even though like there's only 2 call sheets, like you still need to organize everything exactly. You know, and obviously it grows as the project grows, but like, you know, you'll get like camera reports back, like, you know, from the AC, you know, so like you'll need this stuff and you need to be able to access it very quickly, everything. Now, you know, you need like a COVID testing one, obviously like equipment lists, like as you get the quotes in, you have to have like archived ones and comparing quotes, and sometimes you want to refer back to it, right? Because you can't remember everything. So what if you shot something like 3 years ago and you're like, I used that lens. How much was it at this one rental house? So you don't have to like go like look it up again, like somewhere else. You just refer to what that was like. So that's part of the growth, you know, like you know, you're really building up a lot of information for yourself. Invoicing script versions, old script versions. You know, I'm sure most people have seen some version of like, you know, shot lists and stuff. I like shot lists that have both the movement and like the angle. Lenses, you know, depending on the project, right? Sometimes like I feel like directors don't, they'll say like a lens like 24 because they want a wide shot, not necessarily because there's something about a 24 millimeter that they like. And like, yeah, so I think like having all of these for every project, you think you'll remember something, but you will not remember it. You move on to the next project, you know, maybe you go and work on a documentary next and your brain is completely flipped. And then what if somebody calls you to do another narrative project and, you know, you're kind of like prepping overlapping projects, so you need to have all of this information very quickly available. So I do a combination of having Dropbox so that you can access it on your phone, you can access it on your iPad. Like I have 2 computers. So like that's so much of it, and I think that harks back a little bit to you know, both what Pooja was saying, you know, about like preparation, as it, you know, I think that Pooja was saying, you know, more of like, you know, because she does longer form projects, you know, the same idea kind of comes, you know, into my world as well, because so many of the things I do are so short that like a lot of the preparation becomes sort of like on top of each other. And you constantly have to refer to it, or if you're like literally prepping 6 things in different stages, you have to keep it straight so that somebody's asking you an equipment question, you can't just go to like Gmail and type in like, you know, like I don't know, like HMI, because what if 3 projects have like involve HMIs? So you have to have your own system of very quickly referencing it, because things do move so fast, and it's like if you don't answer the question, maybe you don't get the HMI, like, you know, who knows what's happening. So I think speed is of the essence, and you combat that with just being as organized as possible. That being said, I'm very disorganized.
And then I'm always telling, I mean, because there's still this stereotype, oh, women are not technical, but a lot of women I know came up working at rental houses or you know, working grip and electric or like an AC. And so you just learn all that stuff on the job, you know, which is another thing. And especially later on when you have to put together your own equipment list, you know what each and every little tiny
Yeah,
item is.
because the thing about doing independent film as a cinematographer is that, you know, until you get like a well-funded, like whatever, like at least $250,000, if not like $2 million like feature, you, in a way, you have to be your own best boy, because the gaffer that you're getting, it's not that they're not good. Sometimes they're fantastic, but they're not being paid any prep
Yeah.
time, so they don't have time to do these things. So you have to be your own best boy, and you actually have to like look through and make sure, like in your scenario, that like you end up with the correct amount of stands to do the things that you want. So sometimes you can find a gaffer who's more invested in the project for their own reasons, you know, like if they will see it as their calling card and they really want it to be good, then you can rely on them more to like make sure like, oh, we have enough, we can draw enough power, we can, you know, we can do, you know, like this overhead rig, we have the stands, like you can ask them the questions like you would in a more normal narrative system. And that's great. Same thing with the ACs, you know, like especially earlier on, it's like, my God, do I want one receiver, or do I want two, or do I want three? And it was really hard to think through those things, because even though I did AC, I didn't like, I'm DPing at a level that has surpassed where I AC'd.
Yeah.
What I mean? So I no longer, like I have to make up the gap by doing additional research. So it's like also part of that growth thing and research and problem solving. As I become a better DP, I also have to fill in some of the knowledge. You know, like I really didn't know how to like pair wireless follow focus systems, you know,
Yeah.
until relatively recently, because I didn't do that while I AC'd on really low budget projects. And then, you know, like, so I have to research that and make up the gap in case like I have to do a project, but there's no money, and you hire an AC who's too green, you always keep having to make up these little gaps.
Yeah, because then you can, like, I've had a brand new AC who actually messed up that specific thing at the rental house. And then when you get to set and it's not working, then it's like, oh, did we damage it, or was it not working in the first place? And that becomes another. Plus, I mean, you want to use it obviously on set. And so also going back to your COVID test, so what are the changes now with COVID protocols? Have you been back on? It seems like a lot of people are working actually.
New York is really busy.
Yeah.
It's been so busy that I haven't had, like I've had maybe 3 days off in March. That's how busy it is. I'm busier now than I have ever been in my entire career. It's very bizarre. And then you have the COVID, you really have to draw your own line of what you're comfortable with, right? So I know some people have only like been back to work like one day, you know, one shoot or something like that, you know, since last year. So some people really have a hard line, like if they can financially do it, or some people have pivoted away into other jobs. But if you continue to shoot right now, because I am in the camera union here in New York, and it's like a union jobs, even union jobs, there'll be a whole gamut. So recently I did something at so, you know, for those of us in the States, like if you watch SNL, they shoot it at 30 Rockefeller Center, right? At Studio 8H. So we were shooting something there. It wasn't for the show, but it was like a documentary that was related. You know, I was really confused how early SNL came back. Like, how can you do this live show with A-list actors? Like,
I know.
you know, whatever month it was, I was like, how? They're like dipping their hands in buckets of chili and like eating it. I'm like, how are you doing this? So after going through their process, I've never felt safer than in 30 Rock. Because like you, not only do you get your PCR like in a very strict time window, it has to be 48 hours, otherwise you cannot work. Like I had to really rearrange my schedule in order to make the COVID testing, in order to work 2 days later. And then you get in the building, they have a full rapid testing lab in the building. So you have to go there first, and then you get taken here, blah, 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 blah. There are people with literal tape measures, making sure that you are a minimum of 8, like there's a schematic that shows where not only where the camera positions are and the talent, but also where crew would be standing at the time of this interview that we were doing. And then somebody would come over after you set up your, you know, if you ever done an interview, you're like, oh, here are the 3 cameras. This is where the interview is sitting. This is where the subject is, you know, blah, blah. This guy comes over with a tape measure and he's like, okay, well, this is not quite 8 feet. Like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, you know, I want to do 10 feet because when they ask me, I can tell them we did 10 feet. So like it was things like that. It was everything that you've ever read about COVID safety. They actually do it, and they train that their lighting crew to actually respect that. Like at a certain point, like as a documentarian, I plopped something down to do like a time lapse or something. I walked away for 1 minute. I came back, and the stagehand, like he had sat behind the camera because he didn't realize it was going to be you know, an operated camera, and he was just like, oh, I'm too close to you. I'm going to move. Like it was perfect. They have a perfectly well-oiled machine. If everyone did that, we could make anything. Like, you know, like we could shoot anything, crowd scenes, whatever. Like if there's this amount of diligence, it's amazing. So that's on the extreme end of things. And then meanwhile, like I think the riskiest thing that I've done is a situation where no one was tested, but talent only removed their mask when all camera crew was out of the room, and then would put it back on before we came in. So that was still pretty risky, and that was a pretty dicey day for me. So you really just have to draw your own line about, like, you know, is rapid testing good enough for you, or do you only want to do ones with PCR? Do you want to do jobs where everyone has confirmed that their PCR came in on time before the beginning of the day, or are you okay like if it kind of rolls in the middle of the day and you have to like chase after it? Do you want a face shield? Do you not want a face shield? As a camera person, if you're not pulling focus, I don't care that much, because as long as you can like see your frame, you're fine. But like, you know, what if you're pulling your own focus? Sometimes they make you wear the face shield, so now you have reflections. Then you get into the really nitty gritty. You have to make sure you have to have a black face mask so that your reflection doesn't come back at you over the face shield. You know, it's very nitty gritty.
Yeah, like there are these things when you're on set where you're just like, oh, just show me the monitor quickly, but you can't do that now because you're
it's just like an added layer of stuff. So like you just keep going. It's just that, like, you know, I'm organizing, I need to have an additional COVID folder. Like I'm planning my day. Like somebody asked me, are you available to shoot Wednesday? And you're like, when is your testing window though? Like how strict is it? Like, you know, because you might be on another job. So it's definitely just more. It's more. It's a little harder.
Is Pooja back? Pooja? Okay. I don't know. So let's move on. Okay, so yeah, so this is the week of talking about anti-Asian violence. So do you think, you know, artists have a responsibility? We had one guest who was like, no, everyone pretty much takes care of yourself. And then we've had other guests who are very like, yes, you have a responsibility, not only with your work, but who you're hiring and what types of projects you're telling. So, well, first of all, as a DP, you're getting hired on some degree unless you're directing the project also. So how much control do you have over that? And secondly, what is your thought about that?
Well, obviously it's a very big topic. You know, I mean, I feel like you feel it in the background, but I think that one very important thing about sort of this like hustling indie lifestyle, or not even indie, I mean, including if you're working union jobs and stuff, your goal is to work with good people, right? So it's also like a place of privilege, just because you are in essence a freelancer, you select who you want to work with. So I know it's a strange way to answer the question, but it's like, I feel that it's my responsibility in the bigger picture to put myself in a financial and creative position so that I don't have to compromise anything personal. Like I don't have to face a decision of taking a job that I don't feel should be in the world. Because there are jobs where, you know, you take them and then, you know, you don't care about it. You just take the money and walk away. And that's kind of where I draw the line. because I'm not primarily a documentarian, I can't really make like a direct impact, right? I can, in small ways, try to like steer a ship. But like, for example, not really recently because 2020 meant nothing, but I guess it was, oh no, it was early 2020. I was on a short film where I was uncomfortable with one line of dialogue. I thought it was pretty stupid. It was like in reference to like a kid saying like, because it was like a active shooter situation, like in the script. And it was, you know, it was a rainbow like room. The protagonist was like a blonde child, like, you know, like a little girl. Like it's a very classic sort of you know, where you put all your baggage of who you want to protect. So I thought that that weakened the film, but I mean, I wasn't in a position where I can change really that fundamental of a thing, because there were already a lot of cooks in there. There was like the script writer, that, you know, there was like an actor who was big, and then there was the director, and like there was like a lot of money. You know, it gets complex, right? So there was one line that was really stupid, and look, I decided not to say anything about it because I didn't want to get fired, because the reason that I was there, like I knew that it wouldn't be like an amazingly successful film, if that makes sense, because there were some taste issues, and you knew that from the very early meetings. You knew that from the director's previous work, right? So it's also like a limited amount of people are going to see it anyway. But I was there because I wanted to like, I grew, like, you know, I was saying, like, I watched a lot of television, right? So one of the shows that I watched was The West Wing, like when it was on, when I was in school. And Richard Schiff was the actor that was attached to the project, right? So day one, we were shooting this scene with the stupid line in it. And day two, we were shooting Richard Schiff. And it was not even, it's like until he was on set for his specific reasons, because he was doing this show called The Good Doctor in LA, and he had to fly in, and there was like all these things happening. Until he was standing on set, the entire reason that I was there to shoot the film, like 90% of it, there was also some interesting visual things I wanted to do, but that's like secondary. He was why I was there to shoot it. I already knew there were going to be issues. So it's like, I'm not going to like stand here and make an argument because you wanted the kid, the like small Asian child, to say, but I know karate. And it's like, well, it's not good, but there's like 5 million other things wrong with your film, just to be honest. So do I feel great about that decision? No. If it was reversed and we already shot Richard, I would have said something about it. It gets very complex. Yeah, so there's that. There's just like it's a small story, right, about representation. Like, I mean, I mean, I don't know what to say about it. Like, I mean, I make a lot of, I'm trying to make a lot of diverse choices in terms of what I shoot, right? I shoot LGBTQIA films because like I believe in them, and that was like a really big part of my life in 2013 to 2015 especially. But like there are realities to things like this where it's like, well, I can't continue to shoot those forever because it's really difficult to have a mainstream crossover. Like we can't all make like, it's problematic also, but like blue is the warmest color, right? Like everything that breaks through, it's like there are problems there, but that's another conversation. I guess ultimately what I would say is that I'm not in a position where I can really change things, to be honest. Like in hiring, I can do. So especially as budgets gets bigger, and also you can inject it into commercials as well, right? Into the commercial world. If you happen to get like a job, then you have more, a DP job, you can have more control over who you hire sometimes. And then so you can stack the deck, right? You can try to like mix it up. I'm also like an idealist. So like I really strongly believe in 50-50 parity. I don't like films that are like all female crew. Like I understand its marketing value, but I also like, I'm personally beyond that, because I really like, I don't like being put in the position where sometimes I have to hire somebody who doesn't work as well with me, or doesn't have like, who isn't the best fit for that project in my technical and creative opinion, because you wanted to hire a woman. Sometimes it works out, it's fine. It's what I feel is responsible is that if I'm giving you recommendations for gaffer, that I give you women, people of color, and like white people to choose from, because these individuals are good for this and they happen to do this, or you know, to happen to like check the boxes you want and to create the set that we want, right? Because we want equity, Like, we want all these things, and this is my way of doing my best. Like, I actually cannot in good conscience only send you women, because, well, what if like the really talented people just happen, like, I just think people just happen to be things, you know what I mean? So it's like, I have to keep my eyes open, but I really need to like balance it. And it's also, and I guess the last thing I'll touch on is that like money comes into a lot too, because like, I also don't like it when people, it's systemic, right? Because like a lot of women helmed projects don't have money, you trickle down and you end up not having money for the different positions, right? My position, gaffers, DPs, your ACs, your media manager, like everybody. So it's also problematic to keep running around going like, I have $200. I got 175. It's below minimum wage. Like, where are all my women at? Like, that in of itself is also extremely problematic. Like, if we live in this like under a minimum wage budget world, it's like, well, in a way, like, we got to get some, like, you know, young white men in here to shoulder that responsibility too. It can't just be a pattern where we all work for less than our worth, and like, you know, they can just go and like find something that like is actually market rate. So the rate thing is very much mixed into gender, race. It's like all this like jumbled up thing, and I think that people do have very different opinions about it. And I just always try to, the other part of it is like, I try to encourage, you know, if I've recommended like a woman to like kind of like really gunning for them to come into a project, and this is where the rate's at, like I will encourage them to like ask for more, and I'll back you up if they come back to me to ask me about it, or they try to hire somebody else. Like, we need to up the rate.
We've been
Like,
talking about that every week, basically. But
yeah,
people have different opinions, because like one person had started out in the 70s, and so she's like, whatever, she still made it, and she still gets paid, you know, much less, like 50,000 versus her male counterpart getting several $1,000,000 or something. So that's insulting, but I don't know, she was like okay with that. But you have to have the audacity to ask for more. But at the same time, I mean, I came up on sets in New York in the 90s where we were barely getting paid, and then we'd have to like clean up heroin needles or something. So you get the work ethic, but then you have to also get paid. And we would have like several jobs at once, or that's freelance life anyway.
yeah,
But at
yeah.
some
I
point,
mean,
it's not
also,
sustainable also.
you know, I think
So, yeah.
that like sometimes or I hear it a lot, right? Like, especially people who are like a little bit younger, like getting started. And I was that person too. Somebody gives you a rate and then you take it. That is not the correct answer. Somebody gives you a rate and then you counter, because
Yeah.
it is because they have a different bottom line. Maybe they don't, but that's their mistake. And we need to train productions to behave differently. You don't just say like, I have $200 for this position and that's all I have. No, if you want to say you have $200, that means you need to have at least $250. Your bottom line is $250. It depends on who is going to come back and say like, I can't do it for that rate. Not everybody's going to do that, right? But you need to be prepared to pay like $225 or meet somebody at $250 because they're the right person for that job. So we need to do that. And you have to keep raising your rates, because like inflation is real. Like, also now we've uncovered the wage gap and how that plays into it. So it's like, recently I've had a couple of opportunities where I'm like, I don't know if I really want to shoot this. I do, but it's not the worst thing if I don't. And then so just give them a really big number. Do your research. Like, you have to ask men who are doing the work that you want to do, and ask them how much they're making, and they'll tell you. It's not a secret. It shouldn't be a secret, and it's actually not a secret. I've never ever talked to any DP who refused to tell me how much they're making. Maybe they're inflating a little bit. We all do that. You take that with a grain of salt, but then you'll see the numbers that they're giving are like so much higher, and that's part of the bluff, right? We're not saying like they're for sure making that much, but if like on a whole, if you ask women, and I literally do have a group of women on speed dial that I ask these questions to, or different groups. Like, I have one Facebook group and like one group text that I ask. You can ask, it's like, I have this job coming up. I don't know how much to charge. How much would you charge for this? And the women all give numbers that are like not quite, some of them are like half the amount. The gap is that far. because the women are giving you real answers by and large, a little bit inflation depending on who. The men are giving you really high numbers that are probably closer to how much the standard is, and they're also inflating a little bit. So like overall, it becomes half. So maybe the reality is somewhere like this. So you take all of these things into account, and then you have to figure out what you're going to charge, right? And a great way to do that is just to, like, when you get a job that you're not really sure if you want it, just ask for way more money than you think you should be. And then one of those times it's going to be a yes. And you're like, should I have asked for more? And now that's your rate. Now that's, you know, like ask for like 20-30% more every single time you get a job.
Yeah,
because,
they say ask for the have the audacity to ask for an audition.
Yeah, because like I've had jobs where I'm like, they're like, my budget is 1,000. I'm like, well, my rate is 2,500. Like, you know, I don't yell at them like this, but then they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, but maybe we can get closer. And they'll say like 16. And then I'm like, you know, I mean, my schedule is just really tight, which is not, you know, untrue. I just like, there's something that's holding me back from saying, yes, I don't want to do this job. Right. So then they're going like, you know, maybe we can get close to 2,000. I don't know if we can do it. So now you realize you've gone from 1,000 to almost 2,000 in one conversation. What does that tell you about how numbers work? That's it.
Yeah, and also if you learn at least producing or budgeting, at least you'll have a framework for that also to talk about, and you'll know the real numbers anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pooja, your reference.
Sorry about this. It's just today is just not in a good shape. I think he's just not well.
Okay.
Oh. Well, I banned.
So how do you collaborate with your directors? When do you come on a project? Because you're working on features and you're working on commissioned features for streamers, and executives probably have to approve a lot of your work. So how much do you do? Like, so what do you do first when they call you? I guess let's start there.
So actually, you know, most of the projects that I've worked on have been very, very collaborative. First, you know, I've actually been there from the concept stage of the scripting, and it's been very collaborative where the director has, you know, probably read the script, and you know, I've read the first draft and the second draft and the third draft, because most of the directors that I've worked with, except for the Netflix original, I got a bound script. You know, I have sort of jammed on what do you think of this scene, and what do you think as a cinematographer, what do you feel that do you think, you know, these are too many actions, or do you think we can, you know, things like that, where you collaborate and make the story more effective.
Yeah, and if you have like a cinematic approach between the cinematographer and the actors, you can cut a lot of dialogue, for example. And the types of movies you're doing are kind of the opposite of the commercial Bollywood cinema in terms of style. So they're even more in that like internal direction.
So I will tell you, the process has been very different with every direct. I mean, sometimes even if you're working with the same director, every project demands a different prep and different time, different way of approach. So of course, you know, even though there are times you get a lot of prep time. For example, the Netflix original that I shot, I came on board a week before the film. I had a bound script. They gave me the script and said, listen, the DP has backed out, but we like your work. Will you do the work? And I said, like she said, I gave a number. I said, okay, if you pay me this, I'll do it. And they did pay me the amount. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And it was a 22-day shoot at a go. And there was no prep. But the thing is, I always say, as a cinematographer, you have to have mindfulness. You have to be open to things. You have to have a 360-degree angle of what's happening around you, not just on the sets with the director, but also what your production designer is doing, what your costume designer is doing, what your makeup guy is doing, or what actors are getting into. You know, sometimes an actor does something which is nice, and you want to tell the director that, you know, why don't we take this extra shot, or maybe we could incorporate this, or so there have been different processes. First, there has been because I mean, I'll share the screen where where I've actually sat down and done floor design.
Oh yeah, go for it. And then like when do you decide the color scheme? Like Rook had a lot of grays in it, which is probably uncommon for Indian cinemas, like bright colors usually. But even the wardrobe and the shooting color, your camera design you must have planned that with the costume person, like you're saying. So at what point do those conversations happen?
Yeah, so I don't know, I'm not able to share my screen. Share content. It says share content, but I'm not able to open. Now I can. Can you guys see my phone by any chance?
No, we only see your name here.
So I'm sorry. Can I log in from my laptop? But till then, I'll keep talking. So there have been for Rook, especially what happened was, as I said, that we shot a treatment scene, and I was sort of involved in the storytelling even before. From the conceptualization of the whole thing, I was more I knew what the director wanted, and what is the kind of look. See, India is very colorful, but the story was very one directional, very one so still using those colors, but also still making it look very gray was a very difficult task, because you're shooting in Bombay. The production design is not going to, if you're shooting outdoors, you can't go and change everything that's around, the billboards or the so we actually did a lot of location hunt, and there were some 47 locations, and we made sure that we get exactly the locations that we want, and all of that. But the treatment scene had already defined so much of it, because that's how the producers also saw it, right? So it became easier for us to shoot a treatment scene and then go and so for the treatment scene, I was the costume designer, I was the production designer, and I was the producer. So it was easy getting things done the way I wanted. With the director, of course, it was a team of 2, so there were less people to crack heads. So we sort of had a palette set, and of course, when the film came in, we had these storyboards that guys, you're going to see my whole house. I'm going to go from one room to the other, and sorry with all the mess and sanitization that happens in the house because of the baby.
So when you pick a color palette, do you actually put a board together, or?
So see, I always say that filmmaking is very collaborative, and cinematography depends a lot on production design, because production design, how much ever good you light, how much ever good you set the frame, but if the production design lacks what your frame needs or your story needs, then the frame just doesn't make sense. So the production design is 70% of cinematographers' work. So, and if that's there, then you are actually getting into the right zone. So I actually like to sit with my production designer from the beginning and make sure that I'm getting what I want. And of course, it's just not me, it's a director also, right? The director has written the story, so he has a certain way of getting things from, way of looking at things. So this kind of prep is very important. I feel that doing your storyboards, doing your I'm just going to log into Zoom. I'm sorry, I'm so unprepared.
It's okay.
I've
Should we
been
give you a
bummed
minute?
because of, yeah, I'm so bummed because of the baby not feeling well, and it just sort of puts me in a,
Yeah.
uh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just fill time. I
Yeah,
think
go
the
for it.
production design, like, you know, that film that I was showing at the ice rink, it's like there, like
Yeah.
I said, there's no production design because it's all real. So it looks amazing because it's
Yeah.
so real. Like we were shooting a scene in a locker room and like, you know, it's like an empty locker room. So it's like, oh God, this is so boring. I'm trying to like make slashes of light on the wall and stuff. And then right before we went to shoot the scene, like a bunch of like preteens came in to change to go play. So they just left all their stuff everywhere. So then we would like just gently like nudge this helmet into the shot. We framed it up. It's like just like move it. You know, we had like literally beer cans. Like that was the only art that we had. I'm like, okay, so we'll just put 2 beer cans and then just like nudge their helmet into it. It's like, is that something? Okay, great. There's like a mess in the background. This is gonna be great. And it was. It was so realistic because it's like if you wanted to recreate that, that would cost so much money. Yeah.
And then, so then, but then in the other project, both the women were wearing red dresses, and then is it Dysphoria? It was like very production design.
Yeah,
So
Dysphoria
talk
is one of
about
those.
that also. Yeah.
Dysphoria is one of those times where I really lucked out with the production designer. She was like, her work is amazing. A lot of times food, if it looks bad, it looks bad. Like you can write a scene is like, this food is so luscious, and then you get there and it's just like not there and you have to change the shot because it doesn't tell the story. This is one of those times where it's like the place setting was amazing and it's supposed to be like rich people and it's like, oh, it actually matches this. And you know, we did talk about colors, you know, in terms of like, yeah, like the bathroom was an inspiration point. So like we kind of came to an agreement over a lot of those things, right? Where like, you know, we had like kind of turquoise and then we had the blue red. Like, so the blue and red is really important because like when we're in the dining room, I'll just end on this. So in the dining room, in the reality portion, like the light in the back is blue, kind of like your typical like fake moonlight thing. And then when we switch into fantasy, it's the same room, but like the light is now red. And there was that Suspiria thing. So color was really important. And it came from both of the directors and the production designer and me being on the same page about that. And with costumes, you know, like people being in red or being in green. So all of that really came together really beautifully in prep.
And then did you just find an estate or something to shoot on, or how did that go?
Sure, yeah. The performance artist has a very complex personal life. They're the illegitimate child of a cardboard box fortune magnet. So this is a house that her half siblings grew up in, and they couldn't sell it. It's like a multi-million-dollar property that was just empty. So we were able to go there and get housed in it and then brought in art for it. And that's also kind of what the film is about. So yeah, so it was very strange to also get that insight into somebody's life.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
So finally,
Going. Thanks for, I know your baby's sick, but thanks for giving us your time.
no, I'm sorry. I wish I could be more present. But, you know, because I've been talking about the treatment scene so much, I am going to just share my computer and show you the treatment scene.
Oh yeah, he looked familiar, and then when you said white tiger, now it makes sense.
Yeah. So this treatment scene was just, you know, sort of a
like a work sample.
Yeah, work sample for the producer to understand that what kind of storytelling are we looking at, what kind of short divisions are we looking at, and so I'm just going to show you a portion. So first I'll talk about the short division because this is how the scene ends. This is not exactly the scene that came into the film later because the script kept changing. from the time we shot the scene to, you know, finally shooting the film. But yeah, can you all see?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
once again. These days I was looking for my father.
So he suspects this guy has murdered his father, right? Is that
yeah.
okay?
So it basically is following his father in here, and of course the script changed, and you know, it's at the end he just gets his own way of looking at things. So, and this is how it finally came onto the screen. Of course it was a song there, but I'm going to show you because it's a similar shot taking finally that ended up
With more of a budget.
with more of a budget. So you see the production difference, production. So if you see this whole sequence, people actually asked, I did you just put the treatment scene footage over here? I said no. This was, you know, he was with hair in the. It's a very similar shot taking. So what I mean to say is, a lot of times when you discuss a lot with your director, you know what the vision is, and every script has a different vision, and you should try and get to the core of it. That automatically changes your style, because you know what is the core of the script and what is the director set to show. The moment you know that, you as a cinematographer also change. That changes the way you approach, that changes the way you look at the scene. And of course, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into, we went to every location, we had art thematists, we clicked photos, we saw what lens works where. But on shoot a lot of things change, and one has to be open to it. I was not very fixed that, oh, okay, but on Arthematis we said that, you know, this is going to be a 50 and let's just shoot at 50. Sometimes what happens is, while shooting Rook, what happened was we were shooting in the same room because of the scheduling. We were shooting in the same room for continuous 6 days. And we got tired of the short division that we had done, because on the paper it flew for us. But when we finally went to shooting, so we had to devise a new way of looking at the scene. And then I just removed everything. I said, I'm going to take this table in front of me and take it in foreground. And I don't care if people think, oh, did she shoot it from outside the window? Doesn't matter, because really it's a new angle. People also will want to see some new visual. So I always say that one should keep, you should have your prep ready, but you should also keep you know, your I'm going to show you how much prep I did for Rook. It was really something that was I mean, we had everything in our, everything possible in our
Figured out.
yeah, everything that we could
And then
do
when
to,
so with the Netflix original, are there executives, do they have to approve everything like some studios or some networks?
see,
Or
now because it was, ours was the first film, it wasn't so difficult. And also I had come on board too last moment. I could not like Rook, I could not interfere too much. A lot of things were dictated, saying, oh, this is the location we have and what do you think. And I had a very less time. So we were shooting in Delhi, I was in Bombay. I went a week before the shoot. So my tech recce with my gaffer, with my ACs and my director and the production designer happened all together. And in all of that, I was testing my cameras, I was testing my lens. So there was hardly any time for giving any sort of prep to the producers or to the Netflix people. See, here in India, how Netflix original work is, they sanction the film to a production house, and the production house sort of takes over. And of course, the director and DP are asked to sort of do a look test, or some prefer a look test, some prefer a production sort of a docket, cinematographer's docket, where you say, you give references, okay, this is the kind of look I'm looking at, or you actually go on location and sort of click stills and show, or figure out with the actors to sort of do like Dogville, you just have a stage and you sort of do a short
Do the staging.
camera
Yeah.
around, sort of put together everything and show that this is the kind of shot taking we are looking at, but this is the kind of palette we're looking at, because you can't put everything together. So
Pooja, quick question. Can I just ask you, how much of your
Yeah.
own stuff do you operate? Because like obviously most DPs are not Steadicam operators, even in indie. So like aside from that, like how much of like the other stuff do you operate, or do you work with operators?
So here in India, it's very, I mean, we don't usually have operators. We operate ourselves. In fact, the Netflix original that I shot was 80% handheld, and 20% of which was sometimes rig, sometimes Steadicam. But yeah, it's mostly me operating the stuff. And these days, instead of Steadicam, I quite like the Ronin and Mimic. So I am in charge of the frame and not somebody else, because I'm very finicky about my head spaces. I'm very finicky about my character positioning. So even if the gimbal guys are not walking the way I want it, at least my frame is with me. And of course, you're always instructing him, and you can always have a retake. But yeah, I mean, most of the time I'm operating. And of course, if you have a second camera or a third camera, you have operators. So yeah, so there are
And
these.
also, in India, when you rent equipment, you get a crew with it also. You get some
Yes.
amount of a crew because there isn't
Yes.
an insurance system. So the unions send you like your PAs and AC sometimes, someone to assemble the camera, all that stuff. And then they
I mean,
hang out if you don't need them.
cinematographic crew is the biggest, as I mentioned, because I mean, with camera you have 3 attendants. They are there. It's a union rule. You can't really surpass them and say that you can't. I don't want them. You have to sort of.
Yeah, even if they're like eating and hanging out.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You keep them. You keep them with you. Short breakdown.
You were looking for your prep overheads and
Yeah, sort of. And yeah, I mean, I just found some.
oh, I think you have to share your other, you have to unshare this and then share that other window.
Okay. Yeah. So stop sharing. I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions meanwhile? And then we'll have to wrap up soon. For either Barbie or Pooja.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Okay, sorry. I can know if you could hear
Just
me.
introduce yourself quickly.
So my name's Claudia. I'm working right now. I just finished a script, and I'm looking for people basically to put it together to shoot it. In terms of the cinematographer, though, besides, and we covered the lookbook and the short sample, and you guys talked about production design, and how does a new director, because this would be my first feature script or film, how does a new director communicate best with a cinematographer? Because I've heard some directors tell the cinematographer, well, I want the scene to feel like a certain way. So besides the lookbook and the short sample, or proof of concept, which I'm also planning right now, are there any other things that a director, or can we be more specific with a cinematographer? I don't know if the question makes sense.
I know what you're trying to say, but it is the best thing to do is in these kind of situations, if you have time and you have your actors with you, and you are anyways going to do sort of a reading with them, you call your cinematographer and you show that what exactly are you trying to achieve with the actors. Because a lot of blocking depends on the actors, right, at the end, because their body language sort of dictates how your camera is going to take over or show them, choreograph them. And you, in your head with the director, you've probably thought, oh, the actor's going to hold the knife like this and pull it like this, but the actor says, but I don't think I will do it. I would rather kill him like that. Why will I do this? So a lot of these things, if you have a cinematographer who's present for you, and if you have your actors who are present for you, it helps. And if the production designer says, but I'm not going to give a knife which is you can hold like this, maybe the knife is like you can flick it like that. So a lot of these things, I will say, it's so collaborative that if you have a lot of sit downs with your team, it really helps. And there have been surprises. For example, with Atanu, I've collaborated the most. I've shot 3 short films for him, and I've shot his feature, I've shot his documentary, and I've extensively worked with him. I can close my eyes and say, what is he thinking? But we shot a short film recently called Big, and both of us said that we're tired of discussing our scripts, and I know everything from the beginning. This time I'm not going to read your script. I'm not going to sit with you for a short division. I'm not going to come for location Reiki, because I'm not going to use lights. I am just going to go with the camera. I'm going to do handheld. We'll block with the go as the actors work. And we ended up shooting on Scared, probably because we worked so much together. But it was all very on the flow, and we just went with the camera and we just did what the actors were doing. And see, once as a cinematographer,
that's like more of the verite style of shooting also.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, sorry, I'm gonna
go.
As I grew as a DP, I realized that yes, cinematography plays a lot of part in storytelling, and yes, the production design is helpful, but all of this is for prep. When you're on the shoot, is the actors who you need to sort of give priority to as well, because I'm not saying you stop your work, you do as much, like I actually negotiate with my producers saying that, I need this kind of prep time. I need a 1 day prep of light. I need a half a day of prep of light. So because I've seen the actors work and I want to light it in certain way. And when the actors come on the set, I make my work very sort of quiet. And my ACs are still working, but without getting noticed. And I make sure that my actors are given that privilege and time so that they get the, because if the actors are not working in the film, nothing works. Nothing works. And one of the best examples I think of it is, my most favorite cinematographer has been Robbie Muller, and he shot with Lars von Trier the forget the name, but have you seen The Great Wall of China? This song which they mounted 150 PD cameras with the very old versions of video cameras on a train, and they captured it in one take. Sort of, the actors were doing it in one take, and they cut those 100 cameras together. So I feel it's the best when you're not cutting the actors.
Yeah, I just wanted to like piggyback off of your first point, Pooja, about, you know, it's like you want to have a kind of trust with your DP. Like you want to allow your DP to understand how you think as the director. I think that's the most important part. So like you need to find somebody that you trust enough that like you don't want to like necessarily like you shouldn't feel that you need to control everything they're doing. I'm not just saying that like I don't want somebody to micromanage me, but it's like we're here, we have a full plate, and you shouldn't have to worry about that. So you need to find somebody that you trust enough to do that. You want to develop that shorthand. So I would say, like, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying you can't just go out and shoot your feature as a first-time director, but I think that the emphasis on kind of like my niche of like, I do a lot of first and second time directors for short films because like, you know, it's about learning the communication process. It's about like, you know, a director will often say like this is my shot list. And it's like for one scene, there's like, you know, 10 shots in it. And it's like, I can like take that, figure out what it is about the scene that you want, and then remix it into like, okay, we're in and out in 3-4 shots. And then most of the time it's a buy. Most of the time they're like, oh, I see what you mean. Because sometimes, like, you know, if you're coming from as a photographer, you're thinking in still images, right? If you as a new director, if you're coming as a writer, you're thinking in terms of like dialogue, like I need this piece of dialogue and this piece of dialogue and this piece of dialogue. And you may forget that this is a visual medium. Or like, sorry, back to the stills photographer, like you're thinking like, I need to see all these pictures. And you're like, so I need 12 shots. It's like, but you don't though, because you need one shot, because like, you can start on a wide. If you're on a dolly, your wide actually then becomes the medium for the character, and you keep going, then you end on the close-up. And it's like, right now you have all the photographs you just thought of, because we've spent so many years thinking about the specificity of the medium, that we're here to translate it for you so that you can, like Pooja was saying, concentrate on the actors. Like that's not my forte, you know, of being there, you know, in intense character work and like rehearsals and all that stuff. So that's how we can meet. Like if you're like a director that's really great with working with actors, but you don't know the lenses that you want, that's not a problem. Lastly, the other way to kind of start that communication process is that you were saying like how you've heard like, oh, I want it to feel like that. So aside from that, I like to connect it to real world things that we can look at together. And I think that's the true power of the lookbooks, because it's not just the lookbook, right? That we can look at afterwards, but in that process, you can also trade clips. It could be like YouTube, movie essays, right? Like there's one that's like, this is the camera movement that like Fincher likes. And then you can look at that. And it's not like you don't have to emulate what he does, but then you can understand, oh, like the camera, how does it treat its characters? Does it move with them? Or is it like documentary style where like they move in and out? Or is it static? Is it, you know, so like you can then articulate what you like and what you don't like, because you're looking at the same thing together. You know, you may not know what you like, but if you like send like 5 things, your DP will go like, oh, you know what they all have in common. And it would be so obvious to us, like what these have in common are these things. And we can tell it back to you. This is what you like. And so we can do that on the film or not. You know, we can like apply it to certain character things in your script, because I see, you know what I mean? Like, so we're there to like translate the process for you as a new director, because we're here so that you can grow as a director and like, you know, take that with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with Barbie. And also I feel that a lot of times when you share references, just not films, it could be, you know, even some sort of video on YouTube that you've seen and you feel like, that's funny, you know, and or that's something that I'm looking at. It could be anybody's real post, you know, somebody's birthday video, and you probably want that similar birthday to be, you know, sort of imitated or similar way of looking at things. And then of course then there's always this traditional way of, you know, like the first short film that we had done, where I did all these floor maps where you put your angles and you put your cameras. And
Is this
so,
Shotist Pro? I love this app.
yes,
I
yes.
used to do all this by hand, and now I love using this, although it's a little tricky to.
It's hectic. I end up saying that, oh, let me just draw it. But
Yeah.
yeah, but basically you do your floor plans. Film was about a railway track. It's called The Gatekeeper. It's a silent. It's not a silent film. It's with no dialogues. It's just two characters and this guy working on a lonely, isolated railway crossing. And if you see the film, we've shot the film in 6 hours. So we had to be very, very sure of what we wanted. And it's a 14-minute film. So there was a lot to cover. I mean, 14 minutes, 14 pages of script, and to cover in 6 hours was a lot. So we had to shoot. So I had a 5D, and I was selected in Berlinale, where we had a workshop where we sort of put all the cameras together, right from iPhone to 5D to Alexa to Red. So, and what we did was we shot everything together. We made a narrative and we put all those cameras together. We color corrected them and sort of tried to understand that how can one use different cameras on one shoot. And and this short film was a very indie film. We were producing it ourselves, and I had a 5D, which of course was a Crossing Bridges 5D, which we had bought for ourselves. And I had an iPad, so I shot some shots on iPad. So one has to figure out, what kind of shots can I take on iPad? So I just said, let's just take all the long shots on iPad, and whatever tele shots I need, I'll take on 5D. So we were doing 2 cameras together, and the director was doing the iPad work and I was doing the 5D work. So what I'm trying to say here is, as a cinematographer and as a director, you have to be solution oriented more when it comes to executing your film in whatever way, and try and understand what is the rhythm of your script, and make sure that you get everything that you want. At the same time, be ready to improvise, like Barbie was saying, that you sometimes plan for 10 shots, and you go on the shoot and you realize the way the actors are moving or the way the room has been set up, you probably only just need 1 shot with the dolly, or with handheld maybe you can just follow the character. Or there's this one very nice shot, there's this film called About Ellie. There's this one shot that is like telling the whole story about this girl and the whole family near a beach house, and it's just 1 shot, and it goes into a long shot, it goes outdoor, comes inside, and you don't ever feel that it's 1 shot, because the camera moves in a certain way, the actors moved in a certain way. So I'm saying if you, and I'm not saying it always needs prep, it also can happen spontaneously on the shoot. So the presence of mind is very important, and openness to adapt to new things.
Okay, so if you show us this quickly, then we should try to wrap it up.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
there may be one more
it's just the same diagrams. I think I just wanted to show the diagrams.
I guess you can just explain whatever you're going to, if you pull.
Oh no, I was just going to say that I stopped sharing the screen, but if you saw that there was this railway crossing, then there was this railway, and I was just placing the camera to say, okay, this is if the A camera was looking this side, the B camera will look that side, and we will have 2 shots together, and basically plan all of this so that no camera is looking into each other and we're not coming into each other's frame. And yeah, that was it. I mean, there was nothing else I wanted to. Very traditional way of doing the shot division, and sometimes not doing it at all.
Okay, so
Yeah.
any more questions?
Yeah, if anybody has more questions.
Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up then. That was pretty thorough. And thank you, both of you, for being our guests.
I'm sorry I was slightly less present, but
Oh, it's okay. And can they follow you on social media, or can we share emails if anyone wants to follow up?
yeah, sure. I mean, I have my Instagram account, which is. Oh, and but I just want to add one thing before, because we were speaking about women in cinematography, and
Oh
so
yeah.
in India, I was very actively involved. I'll just take 2 minutes. I was very actively involved in something called Indian Women Cinematographers Collective. We have a website where a lot of women came together. Initially, when I started, there were very less women, and sometimes I used to take a pride in saying, "Oh, I'm the one of the few women." But when now people say that, I sort of get irritated, because I'm like, oh, listen, there are more women, and I've grown out of it. And when somebody comes and tells me, oh, Pooja, you did handed and you did so well, and I'm actually very irritated with it, because I'm like, listen, my baby is 8 kgs now, and the camera is 8 kgs, guys, come on, you can't do all this nonsense anymore. I'm like,
I love that, because like I've heard it. It's like you don't go up to a woman and it's like, oh, that toddler looks so heavy. Can I help you with that?
Exactly. And I mean, I was shooting in Rajasthan once. Rajasthan is a desert if some of you don't know, it's a desert in India, and women actually go and take water from whales. I was shooting with a French crew. I was doing second unit, and there was this woman carrying 3 big pots of water, which she must be at least carrying around 30 liters of water. And she comes up to me and says, I'm so proud of women like you doing different kind of things. This camera must be so heavy. And I said, nothing compared to what you carrying actually, So
Yeah.
this women with machine is sort of a taboo for everybody, not just for men, but also for women.
Yeah. And I mean, also, I just want to say, like, I've also had to grow out of, like, you also don't have to prove anything, right? It's like, if your AC asks you, like, can I take that from you? You say yes, because that's like the correct thing to do, in between shots. It's like you go bowling, you don't hold a bowling ball all day. Like, you have to put it down when you're not using it. Like, so it's like you have to say yes when it's like, like reasonable, because that's the correct thing to do. And like, it's like a really big topic, right? It's hard to cover it all, but like, also, like, a lot of people get started as women and they feel like, oh, they need to change the way they dress and, like, whatever, and they act a certain way. You don't have to do that. You have to consider practical things. Like, there's some shoots where I'm like, okay, I'm not operating myself, this, and like, then I can wear that, jumpsuit because it's gonna be fast going to the bath. Or like, it's like, it takes me longer to go to the bathroom, but that's okay. I have time on this commercial shoot. It doesn't matter. Versus like, you're going to go like do this like documentary thing. It's like, okay, I'm not going to wear jewelry. I don't want it to get hooked on something. I'm going to wear, like, you consider all these things, but you can, like, I do my nails a lot. I've been so busy. I haven't been able to do my nails. This is sad for me. So you just make different concessions. You're like, it's going to be like a live stage show. I'm not going to wear glitter. Like, I'm going to pick something matte. Like, you can like fold all these things in like this, like, I'm not going to operate with the eyepiece on this one. I'm going to wear eye makeup. Like, I know this is an eye makeup friendly shot. You can do all these things, and you compromise because of function. You don't compromise because like you want to hold
absolutely.
back
I mean,
yourself.
A lot of times, in the beginning, I used to get pressurized by the fact that, if I say, after 10 days of handheld, if I say my back is hurting and I need a break, I need an operator, I used to feel sort of blocked in my head saying that, oh God, if I say this, they're not going to give me work back. But I have my DP male friends who, after 3 days of handheld come up to me and say, oh, listen, I've just had a very bad back, and I probably ended up lifting the camera in a wrong way, and maybe today I'm going to take a break and my AC is going to operate for me. So yeah, I do that nowadays. I don't really, I think a lot of times this insecurity has to go out of your head. The more you do that, the more your film language becomes easier. But also it happens with time and as you grow as a director or a DP. Yeah, sorry. Done.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys both for joining us. We appreciate you, and we'll look forward to your next projects. And then if anyone wants to reach out, I'll add you to the contact list.
Yeah, please reach out. Like, if you want to have like a one-on-one
Yes,
thing, please do. It's not something
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I will be more probably more informative on one-on-one thing, because today was just too rough for me, and I was actually very fascinated to listen to Barbie, because so many things that resonate and so many things. It doesn't change anywhere in the world. Maybe the working criteria are different, but the things that you go through are so similar.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like, what's on the monitor and what are we doing here is the most important thing, and achieving that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, have a good day, guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day. Thank you
Thank you,
for all the
everybody.
time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.